Something is blocking the light inside 3i Atlas, and it shouldn't be there. Not in any natural structure we've ever recorded. And the moment the composite image stabilizes on my monitor, I feel my stomach drop, because geometry doesn't lie, and nature doesn't build angles inside evaporating ice. Yet there it is. A persistent shadow with a definable edge, surviving across every exposure, every wavelength, every single pass from the James Webb down to the ground arrays in Arizona. And before I can even process what I'm seeing, Avi's probability model flashes in my peripheral vision. 0.0005% odds that its encounter trajectory with Jupiter happened naturally. And if you think that sounds planned, engineered, intentional, you're not alone, because right now my hands are shaking over the keyboard and I'm whispering to myself, stay with me, because I need to understand what I'm seeing before the world does. I'm still staring at the data set when the alert pings on the secondary console. Atlas has just been reacquired by the Deep Space Object Surveillance Network, and the timestamp makes my pulse spike, because it isn't supposed to be this close yet, not according to last week's ephemeris. But here it is, slipping into our observational range months ahead of schedule. And I swear I can feel something tighten in the air around me, like the room itself knows we've crossed a threshold we can't uncross. At first, I think it's a calibration glitch, some artifact from the orbital parallax correction, but then the satellite telemetry syncs, and three independent systems confirm the same impossible truth. 3i Atlas is decelerating. Not by much, not enough for the average person to notice on a graph, but just enough for every scientist who's ever lived to feel ice crawl up the spine. Because comets don't slow down unless something interacts with them. And outgassing alone cannot produce this pattern, not this clean, not this directional. I hear my own breath, shallow, uneven, embarrassingly loud in the silence of the lab. And I lean closer, watching as the object's projected path updates again and again, each iteration bending slightly inward toward Earth's orbital corridor, like it's adjusting itself, not dramatically, but subtly, carefully, the way a pilot might trim a trajectory without wanting anyone to notice. I call Langford first, because he's the only one who won't tell me to get some sleep. And when he answers, his voice is rough, as though he'd been expecting this call, and I share my screen before I can lose my nerve. He doesn't speak for a full 10 seconds. Then, how long have you known? Not what is that, not are you sure, just how long have you known? And that alone tells me we're far past the stage of comforting illusions. We loop in the orbital mechanics team at Goddard, then Jet Propulsion Labs, then, reluctantly, the NOAA Space Weather Desk, because what we're seeing interacts with solar wind in a way that shouldn't be possible, like it's absorbing energy instead of being pushed by it. And each new expert who joins the call has the same reaction. Silence, a long exhale, then the slow, inevitable question, do we escalate this? And I don't want to. God, I don't want to. But then the probabilistic hazard model appears at the bottom of my screen, blooming red at the edges like a wound, indicating that if Atlas continues its micro-adjustments, it will pass closer to Earth than any interstellar object in recorded history, close enough that atmospheric interaction becomes a non-zero possibility. Close enough that governments will stop asking for reports and start ordering action. The room feels colder now, or maybe that's just adrenaline flooding my system, and I can't stop staring at the updated shape reconstruction, because the shadow inside Atlas hasn't changed. Not once. Not across millions of miles and dozens of observational sessions. Natural objects evolve, deform, rotate, shed material irregularly. This thing is stable. Purposefully stable. A structure wrapped in ice drifting toward Earth. I want to tell myself it's coincidence that thousands of things could cause geometric occlusion, but the truth presses down on me like weight on my chest. I've never seen anything like this, and neither has anyone else. I switch the feed to the Hawaii array, where the adaptive optics reveal the coma turbulence patterns, and that's when the second anomaly hits me. There's a phased lagged oscillation in the dust plume as the something inside the nucleus is generating pulses,
rhythmic, almost mechanical. And the timing correlates disturbingly well with the rotation period we derived last month, which means this isn't a random artifact, this is behavior. Intent or not, the data behaves as if something inside Atlas is interacting with its environment. Langford murmurs, Jesus, under his breath. And I can't blame him. I feel a metallic taste in my mouth, like fear made physical. The NASA coordination line opens automatically, triggered by the object's hazard score exceeding threshold, and suddenly my screen fills with faces. Agency directors, military liaisons, atmospheric modelers, people who do not appear on calls unless someone is whispering the word threat. I'm not supposed to speak first, I know that, but something in me snaps when I see the updated distance projection. Atlas is going to cross the lunar orbital buffer. Not in months, not in weeks, in days. We need to act, I hear myself saying, voice too tight, too thin, like it's coming from someone standing behind me. I need to understand what I'm seeing before the world does. If this thing fragments near Earth, if its mass distribution is irregular, I stop myself, because I can't say what I'm thinking if there's something inside it, something we didn't account for. One of the generals interrupts, asking for impact probabilities, deflection windows, kinetic intercept models, and the scientists on the call exchange a look I wish I could record and show the world. Absolute unfiltered dread. Because the numbers aren't there. The warning isn't enough. The timing is catastrophic. At best, we have a few launch windows. At worst, none. And then someone says the word we'd all been avoiding. Detonation. It hangs in the air like smoke. No one agrees. No one disagrees. They just let the idea sit there, radioactive and impossible, and for a moment the call is silent except for my own pulse thundering in my ears. I close my eyes, inhale, trying to steady myself, trying to remember that I am a scientist, not an alarmist, that my job is to interpret, not panic. But when I look again at the data, at the shape that shouldn't exist, at the unnatural stability of the internal occlusion, and the trajectory that tightens with each microadjustment, all I feel is a cold certainty settling into my bones. Something is coming toward us and we don't understand it. Not its structure, not its behavior, not its intent, if intent even applies. We can't blow it up, I whisper before I can stop myself, and several heads snap toward me. We don't know what's inside, we don't know what that would release. The room reacts with tension so thick it feels like pressure on my skin. Somewhere in the chaos, someone asks me to justify my caution, and I point at the internal occlusion, the geometric void, the shadow that refuses to behave like shadow. This isn't ice, it's not rock, it's not debris, it's something else. The general asks what something else, and I can't answer. Not honestly, because I don't know, and that terrifies me more than anything, more than proximity, more than the hazard score, more than the word detonation lingering like a blade above us. I look back at Atlas, frozen in the image, a visitor from another star, wrapped in ice, hiding something that shouldn't exist, moving closer to Earth than any interstellar object in history. And all I can think is that this moment right here, this breath, this heartbeat, is the last quiet one we may ever have.
The moment the call ends, I'm left alone again with the glow of the monitors and the slow, rhythmic hum of the servers. And for a few seconds, I let myself believe the worst is behind us, that someone higher up, someone with authority and political insulation is going to handle this now, take the burden out of my hands. But that illusion lasts exactly long enough for the next alert to pulse across my screen. An automated anomaly flag from the NOAA geostationary satellites indicating a thermal deviation in the upper atmosphere along the projected path of 3I-Atlas, a deviation so faint that no one should care about it. And yet, the system still escalated it because the pattern matches the kind of disturbance you'd see when an object begins interacting with solar radiation in a way that doesn't match its albedo model, meaning Atlas is heating space around it, not itself, which makes no sense, none, and suddenly my breath is shallow again, and the room feels smaller. I rerun the scan, thinking maybe the algorithm overfitted or misclassified solar background noise, but the second pass amplifies the deviation, and the third confirms it. The object is creating a thermal cavity as it approaches, something like a wake trailing behind it, as if it's pushing against the vacuum with energy we don't understand. When I call Langford back, he doesn't even say hello. He just mutters, "Tell me it's a glitch." And the silence that follows my explanation is long enough that I think the connection dropped. When he finally speaks, his voice is lower, stripped of the frantic edge he carried earlier. "It's reacting to something," he says, "or preparing for something." I don't want to think about what that means, not in the context of an interstellar object closing the distance to Earth at a rate we can't counter. But the data is right there in front of me. Atlas isn't behaving like a comet anymore. It's behaving like a system. The middle of the night becomes a blur of escalation protocols, emergency calls, encryption keys, and live orbital updates that shift faster than I can internalize them. Every agency I know, and some I didn't know existed, pulls into the coordination loop. The Pentagon demands continuous telemetry. NASA wants rotational harmonics. The White House asks if this is an extinction class scenario. And the fact that no one on the scientific side immediately answers tells me everything I need to know. But the worst moment comes at 3:14 a.m. when the atmospheric modeling team pushes a projection to my panel showing that if Atlas maintains its micro-adjustments for another 20 hours, it will clip Earth's magnetosphere. Not impact, not enter the atmosphere, just brush against the outer boundary of our planetary shield. But even that is unprecedented. No interstellar object has ever come close enough to deform our magnetic field. The ramifications spiral through my mind. Auroral disruption, satellite interference, radiation channeling, and though none of it is catastrophic on its own, the fact that it's happening at all is the problem. Natural objects don't aim for magnetospheres. They don't adjust toward them. They don't behave like this. And then comes the twist, the one that knocks the breath out of me. The micro adjustments stop completely. It's as if Atlas reached the position it wanted and froze the trajectory. A clean, stable vector, like a plane leveling off before descent. When the update appears on the shared feed, every scientist on the channel stops talking mid-sentence. Someone whispers, "It's holding position." And the silence reverberates through the silence like a trigger being pulled. I open the deep imaging file from the Hawaii array, pushing the enhancement beyond what the data quality supports, and the instant the coma resolves, I feel my skin rise with goosebumps. The geometric shadow inside is no longer uniform. It's brighter at the edges now, almost shimmering, like something inside Atlas is waking up or adjusting itself in response to proximity. But the most terrifying part is the symmetry. The shadow has taken on a curvature that wasn't present before, a curvature that mirrors Earth's own magnetic topology. It's aligning with us. I try to explain this to the group, stumbling over my words because my brain is moving faster than my mouth, and halfway through my breakdown of the new readings, Langford cuts in with a tone I've never heard from him. Not fear, not shock, but resignation. "It's studying us," he says, or analyzing our field, or matching to it. And I know he's right, because the data doesn't lie, and nothing else explains the stabilization. A natural object would either continue adjusting due to outgassing or drift based on solar pressure. Atlas is maintaining a corridor like a drone hovering in place. We're not dealing with motion, we're dealing with intent. The military liaison demands that we provide a threat classification, and the absurdity of trying to categorize something that might be either a fragile comet or the most significant discovery in human history hits me with a dizzying force. I feel a wave of nausea, but I fight it down because they need an answer. And the worst part is I can't say unknown, not anymore, not with the data in front of us. So I say, assume hostility is not the baseline. Assume observation. And even as I say it, I hear the faint tremor in my voice betraying me. Observation is only comforting if you know the observer's motive, and we don't. The emotional roller coaster climbs again when the first satellite telemetry glitch hits. GOES 17 drops for 3 seconds as it passes through the projected interaction zone, and in those 3 seconds, its magnetometers spike with a pattern that is not random and not natural. Patterns in space are sacred. They mean structure. They mean signal. And this one looks like a repeating interference cycle,
almost like something inside Atlas is probing the boundary conditions of Earth's field. When the system recovers, I replay the anomaly 10 times, each pass making my heart pound harder. I want to tell myself that I'm misreading it, that it's numerical aliasing or satellite drift, but I can't unsee the periodicity. It's rhythmic, deliberate. And then right when panic is cresting again, Langford says something that briefly gives me hope. Maybe it's not approaching us. Maybe it's anchoring itself. Anchoring. The word sends a jolt through me, because if Atlas is stabilizing relative to Earth's magnetosphere rather than adjusting toward impact, then maybe, just maybe, this isn't a threat scenario. Maybe it's a rendezvous scenario. The thought hits me with such force that for the first time in hours, I feel my lungs expand completely. A rendezvous, an interstellar object using our planet's magnetic field as a reference for some kind of maneuver. It's insane. It's impossible. It's also the first explanation that fits every piece of data. I'm about to present this theory to the group, trying to marshal evidence fast enough to sound coherent, when the lights flicker in the lab. Just a brief dip in voltage. But the timing is too perfect, too aligned with the newest telemetry burst from Atlas. And then the spike comes. A solar wind disturbance that shouldn't exist, not at this magnitude, not this localized. The coronagraph feed from the Solar Dynamics Observatory shows a ripple in the heliospheric current sheet, like a wave passing through plasma, and it's originating near Atlas. I hear chairs scrape on the other end of the call. Someone curses softly. This is the unexpected turn, the kind that forces every assumption into the trash, because now it's not just approaching us, it's interacting with the sun. The last time anything manipulated the solar sheet this way was never. Nothing does that. Nothing can. Hope evaporates so fast it leaves a hollow ache in my chest. Then the notifications cascade in. A dozen satellites entering safe mode simultaneously, a geomagnetic index spike, an unexplained oscillation in long-range radio frequencies. Every screen updates at once, and for a moment the room is chaos, a storm of data and alarms and overlapping voices, until Langford shouts,
"Quiet, with a force that stuns the channel into stillness. And then we see it. Atlas has shifted again, not much, but enough. Its orientation has changed. The internal shadow now faces Earth directly. No rotation, no drift, just a purposeful alignment, like an eye turning toward us. The stakes shoot higher than anything we've imagined. Every instinct in me screams to intervene, to warn, to act. But what action even exists? What tool do we have to negotiate with something wrapped in ice and older than civilization? One of the Pentagon officials breaks the silence with a question I knew was coming, but prayed wouldn't. Is this an act of aggression? The scientists hesitate. They always hesitate, but the military doesn't. They speak in firmer terms. They talk in protocols. They talk in contingencies. They talk in defense. And before I can stop it, the conversation shifts toward kinetic interception again, toward deflection, toward destruction. My pulse surges as I step in, my voice cracking with urgency. If you strike it without knowing what's inside, if you destabilize it, we could trigger something far worse. We could cause an atmospheric event, a magnetospheric collapse, a cascade of impacts, or... I stop myself because the real fear is worse, that we would be striking something that is aware, something that came here intentionally. We need to understand before we act. We need time. But time is precisely what we don't have. Atlas is holding position at the edge of the magnetosphere, and whatever it's doing, it's accelerating. The signals inside its shadow intensify. The cavity around it expands. And my gut tells me, no, my bones tell me, that we are seconds away from the next phase of something we're not prepared for. The emotional rhythm tightens again, faster, sharper. I can feel the story compressing, reality collapsing into a singular point of tension. Because in the next update, the one that freezes everyone in place, the onboard instruments detect something impossible, a low-frequency modulation emanating from Atlas. Not noise, not radiation, a pattern, a message, and it's targeted at Earth.
The moment the instruments confirm, the modulation is real. A dense electric silence fills the operations room, the kind that feels like pressure on the eardrums, like we've stepped into a vacuum where sound shouldn't exist. And for a few seconds, I can't tell if my heart is pounding too loudly or if everything else has gone unnaturally still. But then the second wave of data streams in, raw, unfiltered, uncompressed, a waterfall of numbers that should mean nothing, and yet my brain is already searching for structure, because structure means intention, and intention means intelligence. And intelligence means that everything we believed up to this moment about our place in the universe is already obsolete. The modulation is low frequency, almost infrasonic, a slow oscillation that rides on the edge of detectability. But what unsettles me isn't the signal itself. It's the fact that it changes when Earth's magnetic field fluctuates, as if Atlas is using the magnetosphere as a carrier wave, tuning itself through the planet's natural resonance. Langford is breathing hard beside me, his lips slightly parted, his hands trembling as he adjusts the filter thresholds, and when the cleaned pattern emerges on the screen, simple, repeating, recursive, I hear someone in the background whisper, "That's impossible." But impossible stopped being relevant hours ago. The modulation cycles through 3 states before looping, each state representing a mathematical ratio that corresponds eerily well to Earth-Sun orbital harmonics. And my throat tightens because nothing about this is random. It's not noise. It's not a byproduct of rotation. It's a deliberate handshake, a calibration, a test to see if we're paying attention. When I try to speak, my voice cracks, so I swallow hard and force myself to explain what we're seeing, though the words feel thin, inadequate, childish compared to the gravity of the moment. It's signaling, not language, not communication, but a probe, a ping. My palms are sweating. I wipe them on my shirt, trying to steady the tremor in my fingers as I pull up comparative patterns from the Voyager Golden Record pulsar map, from SETI candidate signals, from every astrophysical modulation we've cataloged over the last 50 years, and none of them, not one, resembles what Atlas is doing. This isn't a message sent across space. This is a message created on arrival, a real-time interaction. And then something happens that pushes the emotional pendulum from terror to awe so abruptly I feel dizzy. The signal responds to us. One of the analysts adjusts the magnetometer calibration, a tiny correction to clean noise from the channel, and the modulation from Atlas changes in direct correlation. Not delayed, not gradual, immediate. It reacts to us. It hears us. For a moment, time fractures. Everything else falls away. I'm aware only of the trembling sensation crawling up my spine, a feeling that is not fear exactly, but something older, more primal. The recognition of being watched. Then, chaos erupts. The Pentagon liaison demands to know if this constitutes hostile intent. The NASA director insists that we must not anthropomorphize an unknown system. The White House representative asks if we can respond back, as though we're tuning a radio rather than interacting with something that crossed light years to reach us. But amid the storm of voices, a newer alert flashes on my secondary panel, one I almost ignore because my brain is overloaded. But when I actually read it, my mouth goes dry. Atlas is changing shape. The geometric occlusion in the core is reconfiguring, not melting, not drifting, reconfiguring with mechanical precision, the edges sharpening into a more defined curvature, like petals unfurling from the inside of a frozen flower. And the moment the rotational model recalculates, the conclusion drops into place like a guillotine. The internal structure is not passive. It's active. It's transitioning. Langford leans forward, his eyes wide, almost glassy, and says in a voice barely above a whisper, "It's opening." The word hangs there, wrong and right at the same time, and for several seconds none of us breathe. I zoom in on the latest high-resolution frame from the Subaru telescope, and the detail hits so hard my throat tightens. Part of the shadow isn't shadow at all. It's a cavity with internal bracing, material stress patterns, straight lines. Something engineered, wrapped in ice for millions of years, waiting. The modulation escalates. A second frequency layer emerges, higher amplitude, more defined, and the frightening part is that it's no longer just using Earth's magnetic field as a carrier wave. It's shaping it, subtly bending the magnetosphere in tiny fluctuations that ripple across the polar regions. Satellites begin reporting minor compass deviations. The ISS logs a brief sensor anomaly. Airplanes at high altitude experience 5-second instrument drift. Nothing catastrophic, nothing harmful, but coordinated. And suddenly every government official on the call is talking at once. The military demands kinetic intercept authorization. The scientists scream that firing on something that is responding to us is suicide. The civilian agencies insist that we must disclose this to the public because suppressing it is now impossible. I feel myself drifting between voices like I'm underwater, the sound warping, muffling, distorting. And in the middle of all this, someone asks me, whether Atlas is trying to communicate. The question hits like a physical blow because the truth is unbearable. "I think it already is," I say. And before anyone can challenge me, a new alert flashes on my secondary panel. One I almost ignore because my brain is overloaded, but when I actually read it, my mouth goes dry. Atlas is changing. It's interacting with the sun as part of the same sequence. My thoughts spiral into configurations I don't want to consider, but they form anyway. What if Atlas uses stellar magnetic fields for navigation? What if Earth's magnetosphere is a key? What if this modulation isn't a message, but a calibration for something that requires proximity to a planet? The fear that takes hold in my gut is visceral, suffocating. And then, just as the tension threatens to break me, something unexpected happens. A brief lull. The modulation stabilizes. The cavity inside Atlas stops expanding. The magnetospheric fluctuations cease. For the first time in hours, everything holds steady. This is the emotional breath, the false calm, and everyone in the room feels it, the way animals sense a storm's eye. Langford leans back, rubbing his face with both hands, and whispers, "Maybe it's done. Maybe that's it." And for a heartbeat, I want to believe him. I cling to the idea like a lifeline. Imagine Atlas drifting harmlessly past Earth after completing some inscrutable objective. Imagine myself closing my eyes and sleeping for the first time in days. But hope is fragile, and it shatters a moment later. The cavity inside Atlas pulses with light. Not reflected, emitted. A cold, bluish radiance that shifts in intensity like a heartbeat. The first real sign of internal energy output we've ever recorded from an interstellar object. And the implications slam into me. Atlas isn't just active, It's powering up. The frequency modulation shifts into a harmonic cascade, dozens of overlapping bands forming a complex waveform that defies classification. Too structured to be noise, too layered to be simple communication, and as I watch the pattern evolve, something about it feels familiar, eerily familiar, and then I realize why. It resembles the frequency map of Earth's own ionosphere during magnetic storms. Atlas is mirroring us, echoing us, reading us. It's learning our field.
The Pentagon liaison shouts that this is the final confirmation they need, that the object is hostile, that it's preparing a weapon or a shield or a propulsion event that could harm Earth, and they demand immediate presidential authorization for an intercept strike. But the scientists are screaming just as loudly that this is not aggression, that this could be the most significant scientific discovery in human history. That firing a missile at something capable of manipulating magnetic fields on planetary scales is equivalent to lighting a match inside a gas-filled room. I'm halfway between those two worlds, pulled apart by dread and wonder, because part of me fears that Atlas is preparing something catastrophic, but another part, quieter yet deeper, believes we are witnessing a mechanism beyond anything we've dreamed. Something magnificent, ancient, purposeful. Then comes the mid-story twist I never saw coming. Atlas sends a second modulation, and this one is not aimed at Earth. It's aimed at the Moon. The lunar magnetometer network lights up, showing induced current running through the regolith like static electricity, and the seismic sensors detect micro-resonance not caused by impacts, but by electromagnetic stimulation. Atlas is using the Moon as a reflector, a relay, a calibration mirror. The realization slams into me so hard my knees wobble. Atlas is mapping the Earth-Moon system, not targeting, understanding, positioning itself within a gravitational magnetic architecture that predates humanity. The numbers come together with horrifying clarity. It's not attacking, I whisper. It's docking. Silence falls again, deeper than before. Even the military officials hesitate, because docking implies purpose, precision, intention. And if Atlas is docking, then Earth is not the target. Earth is the anchor, the platform, the stepping stone for whatever comes next. But what comes next? No one knows. No one even pretends to know. And then the final spiral begins. Atlas accelerates, not forward, not downward, but rotationally, spinning its internal structure without altering its external coma, a feat that defies conservation of angular momentum, unless something inside is counterbalancing it with active systems. The light pulses faster, the cavity glows brighter, the modulation intensifies into a harmonic scream we cannot hear but feel as a pressure in the skull. My vision blurs, my pulse hammers. The room is a cacophony of alarms, shouts, telemetry feeds, and the rising panic of people witnessing history break open. And then, just when I think I can't take another second, the climax hits. Atlas activates something. The space around it warps, not visually, not like science fiction, but gravitationally, magnetically, as though a mass has appeared or disappeared inside the core, causing the coma to distort in a ripple that cascades outward, interacting with the solar wind in a way we've never seen, a way that defies classification. And the light, God, the light, flares once, a single brilliant pulse that registers across every sensor, from the magnetosphere to the lunar surface to the farthest satellites in geosynchronous orbit. Then everything stops. All signals cease. All modulation ends. Atlas goes dark,
And we're left with the question that will haunt humanity forever. Was that the beginning or the end of whatever Atlas came here to do?
For almost a full minute, as Atlas goes dark, no one speaks, no one moves, no one even seems to breathe, as if we're all waiting for reality to snap back into place, for the universe to correct itself and pretend none of this ever happened. But the silence stretches, 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 until it becomes unbearable, a suffocating pressure settling into the room like dust after an explosion. And when I finally exhale, the sound feels obscene in the stillness, like breaking a sacred rule. Because the truth is dawning on all of us at the same time. We have no idea what comes next. And whatever just happened, whatever Atlas just did, wasn't an error, wasn't a malfunction, wasn't a breakdown in physics or instrumentation. It was deliberate. The sensors are the first to recover, one by one flickering back to life like animals emerging slowly after a predator passes. And when the magnetosphere readings reappear, my stomach twists, because Earth's field hasn't returned to normal. It's shifted. Not broken, not destabilized, but reconfigured, nudged into a slightly altered topology that shouldn't be possible without a planetary-scale electromagnetic event. A topology that looks disturbingly similar to the alignment curve Atlas displayed moments before going dark. Langford leans forward, eyes narrowed, sweat beading along his hairline, and whispers, "It marked us." And though I want to deny it, dismiss it, laugh it off as panic-driven paranoia, the data is right there in front of us. Atlas left a signature in our magnetic field. Not a message, not a code, a position, a coordinate. The moon's seismometers spike again, faintly, like an echo of the earlier resonance, and for a moment I imagine the Earth-Moon system as a single vast vibrating instrument, and Atlas as the musician tuning us, calibrating us, repurposing us. Before I can spiral further, a new alert pings across my primary monitor. Hubble has re-established visual lock, though the feed is degraded, noisy, full of tearing artifacts from the earlier electromagnetic blast. But when the image finally resolves, even partially, my throat constricts. Because Atlas hasn't disappeared or broken apart. It's just dormant, suspended, like a machine in standby mode. The coma is still present, but thinner, sparser, as though some of the sublimation has stopped. The internal cavity is still visible, but dim, devoid of the eerie bluish glow that filled it before the pulse. But the shape, God, the shape, it's different now, sharper, cleaner, less like an organic object and more like something designed, something meant to be understood only up close. A Pentagon official demands telemetry on debris fields, asking if the electromagnetic event might have ruptured the outer shell. But when the spectral analysis returns, it shows zero particulate increase. No debris, no fractures, no structural shedding. Whatever Atlas did, it didn't harm itself, which means the darkening wasn't damage. It was completion. Completion of what? Someone asks, voice trembling. And I can't answer because none of us knows. It's Langford, who notices the second change. Atlas is no longer drifting. It's stationary relative to Earth's magnetic field, locked in place as if anchored by invisible machinery. His voice cracks as he says it because nothing, not even probes we've designed ourselves, can anchor perfectly without constant correction. And yet Atlas sits there, like a monument suspended in deep space. The analysts begin running simulations trying to understand what kind of force could counter solar wind, gravitational perturbations, and orbital mechanics simultaneously, and every model crashes within seconds because no known propulsion system can hold position this precisely without violating Newton's laws. Meanwhile, the modulation logs continue updating as the data team backfills missing telemetry from backup relays.
And when one of the analysts overlays the pre-pulse modulation sequence with the magnetosphere shift, an unsettling pattern emerges. Atlas's harmonic cascade mapped precisely onto Earth's magnetic field, like a sculptor bending clay, reshaping us with microscopic electromagnetic nudges. The implications ripple through my mind, each one darker than the last. Atlas didn't just signal, it scanned, it mapped, it tuned, and then it executed an action, one that required our planet's magnetic signature as a reference point. The director from NASA tries to restore order, urging calm, insisting that we can't jump to conclusions, but the fear is growing, spreading like static across the call, and then someone from the DoD asks the question we've all been avoiding. What if this is Phase 1? My pulse spikes. Phase 1 implies Phase 2. Phase 2 implies a sequence, a purpose, a mission. I want to push back, insist that we're overinterpreting, but my mind keeps drifting back to Avi's statistical anomaly, the 0.0005% chance of Atlas's encounter with Jupiter being natural. If you assume it wasn't natural, if you assume arrival was intentional, if you assume alignment was intentional, then everything else follows. My hands shake as I pull up the orbital projections again, and that's when I notice something horrifying. Atlas is no longer on a hyperbolic escape trajectory. Before the pulse, its path was open. It would have slingshotted past Earth and returned to interstellar space. But now the models show a subtle shift, tiny but mathematically undeniable. Atlas has dropped into a bound orbit. It is captured. It is staying. Langford notices the moment my expression freezes. "What is it?" he asks, leaning closer, and the words sprayed painfully from my throat. Atlas is now gravitationally bound to Earth. The reactions are immediate, shouts, curses, disbelief, but the physics is solid. Whatever Atlas did in the final pulse changed its velocity vector just enough to capture it into a multi-year looping orbit around the Sun that brings it back toward Earth on every perihelion, like a satellite, like a returning probe, like something that wasn't here to pass by, but to establish presence. The Pentagon liaison seizes on this, arguing it is definitively now a threat because no natural comet adjusts into a stable capture orbit around a planet without atmospheric braking or enormous energy expenditure. And the tension surges again, sharper than before, because now the stakes have escalated from temporary danger to permanent proximity. The scientists argue furiously, insisting that we still don't know what Atlas is, that attacking something we don't understand is reckless, that we might trigger consequences far beyond anything we can predict. But the military doesn't care. They care about danger. They care about precedent. They care about control. And Atlas represents a loss of control so absolute that it terrifies them. The energy in the room shifts as political pressure crashes into scientific uncertainty, and a cold dread settles into me, not just because of what Atlas is, but because of what we might become while reacting to it. Governments don't like mysteries. They like threats they can neutralize. And Atlas is neither, or both. I open the real-time magnetometer feed again, desperate for clarity, and that's when I see a faint ripple emerging along the cusp region of Earth's field, a ripple timed too perfectly with Atlas's dormant oscillations to be a coincidence. Atlas is still influencing us, not dramatically, not violently, but subtly, like a hand tapping the strings of an instrument, testing resonance, testing limits, or worse, waiting for a response. The sudden emotional whiplash comes when one of the senior geomagnetic specialists bursts into the room physically, holding a printout, breathless, wild-eyed. He slams the paper onto the console and jabs at a series of numbers that mean nothing to the Pentagon liaison but everything to us. He says, "This isn't just a magnetic shift.
It's a signature. A signature. A repeating harmonic that overlays Earth's magnetic field like a watermark. Atlas tagged us." The realization crushes me with a wave of vertigo so intense I grip the edge of the console to keep from sinking to my knees. We weren't scanned. We were labeled.
The military spirals into panic, demanding immediate countermeasures, asking if this tagging can be reversed, jammed, scrubbed, neutralized. But we have no idea what it means, no idea if interacting with it will trigger a response. The Pentagon liaison mentions EMP strategies, magnetometer overload, pulse jamming, but every scientist in the room shouts them down. You can't jam something that manipulates magnetic fields on a planetary scale, Langford snaps, voice thick with rage and fear. That's like throwing a pebble at a tidal wave. But the liaison doesn't care. He wants options. He wants action. And I feel sick, physically sick, watching the conversation tilt toward conflict. Because I know, deep in the marrow of my bones, that attacking Atlas is the worst possible outcome. Then something happens that shifts the entire emotional landscape again. The internal cavity of Atlas flickers, just once, a tiny pulse, dim, weak, but unmistakable, like a heartbeat returning after a flatline. The room falls silent. Everyone's staring, waiting, dreading. But the pulse doesn't repeat. Atlas remains dormant, unmoving, silent, but alive. This is worse somehow, because it means the blackout wasn't the end of its operation. It was an intermission. My fear tightens like a fist closing around my lungs. And then, because the universe has a cruel sense of timing, the lunar seismometers spike. Again, harder than before. A wave of resonance sweeps across the moon's surface, reflecting back toward Earth in a pattern none of us can identify. The analysts run comparisons against every oscillation in the database, natural, artificial, seismic, magnetic, and the match comes back negative across all categories. Whatever this is, it's new. A second signature. A second label. This time not on Earth, on the moon. Suddenly the pieces rearrange, snap into place with horrifying clarity. Atlas didn't just mark us, it marked the Earth-Moon system as a paired unit, a binary coordinate, a beacon, a target, a destination. The Pentagon liaison slams a fist on the table, demanding authorization for an immediate strike before whatever Atlas summons arrives, before the beacon completes, before the Earth becomes the focal point of something we cannot defend against. The scientists argue back with equal desperation, insisting that striking Atlas now could accelerate whatever process is already underway, that the tag isn't a threat but a handshake, that this could be the first peaceful contact in human history. I want to believe them. I want to cling to the hope that this is wonder, not doom. But the truth is gnawing at me, relentless, merciless. We don't know, and ignorance is the most dangerous force in the universe. The tension spirals into chaos, alarms blare, voices overlap, people shout across channels. The world outside continues unaffected, unaware that history is balancing on a razor's edge in a silent operations room buried beneath layers of concrete and classified clearances. And then, the final escalation hits. An unmistakable change in Atlas's posture. The coma collapses inward as if sucked toward the core. The internal cavity brightens by a single degree Kelvin. The gravitational sensors show a microspike inside the object, a fluctuation so tiny it should be meaningless, and yet sends terror flooding through me because it suggests mass redistribution. Atlas is preparing something. A next phase. A next step. A next signal. And as I stare at the object suspended in space, wrapped in ice, humming with dormant power, tagged into our magnetic field like a claim, I feel a cold, devastating truth settle through me. This isn't the climax. This is the prelude. The real event, the one Atlas came here for, hasn't begun yet. I don't realize I'm shaking until my fingers slip off the console, slick with sweat, and I have to grab the edge with both hands just to stay grounded, because the moment Atlas's internal cavity brightens, that single impossible Kelvin, the room changes in a way I feel before I understand. The way a forest goes silent before a predator moves, the way static builds in your teeth before lightning strikes, the way instinct screams in your blood long before your conscious mind catches up. Because whatever Atlas is shifting toward isn't random, isn't incidental, isn't passive. It's purposeful, deliberate, and for the first time since this nightmare began, I feel a presence behind the data. A will, not human, not hostile exactly, but vast, cold, and terrifyingly certain about whatever it came here to do. The Hubble feed jitters as if recoiling, stabilizes, then zooms deeper into Atlas's cavity, and the light inside Atlas resolves into a structure I've never seen before. Concentric rings nested like ripples frozen in ice, each one pulsing faintly at different intervals, each interval mapped perfectly onto the magnetosphere signatures it imprinted on Earth and the Moon. And when Langford whispers it's synchronizing, I feel my heartbeat stutter, because he's right. The frequencies are converging, aligning into a harmonic resonance between three bodies, Earth, Moon, and Atlas, a triad forming a single geometric system. A Pentagon voice cuts in, brittle with fear, demanding confirmation that this is a prelude to an attack, an energy buildup, a kinetic deployment, something we should counter immediately. But one of the spectral analysts snaps back that the energy levels are too low for weaponization, that this is pattern, not power, signal, not strike. The liaison barks that a signal can be more dangerous than a weapon, and for once I agree with him, because the longer I stare at those synchronized rings, the more I feel it. This is not a beacon to bring something here. This is a trigger. The flood of data from the Deep Space Network adds another blow, an anomalous gravitational whisper detected near Earth's L1 point, so faint it should have been dismissed as noise, but the timing is unmistakable. It appeared within seconds of Atlas's brightening. My breath catches as a dreadful thought uncoils inside me. Atlas wasn't sending for something, it was awakening something, something already here, something dormant. The DSN operator on the line says the anomaly is small, barely measurable but persistent, like a mass fluctuation with no mass, a pocket of gravitational tension, localizing and strengthening as Atlas continues its internal calibration. A theoretical physicist from Caltech, patched in mid-crisis, breathes the words no one wanted to hear. We're detecting space-time deformation. The Pentagon liaison demands options: strike, disable, intercept, anything we should counter immediately. But one of the spectral analysts snaps back that the energy levels are too low for weaponization, that this is pattern, not power, signal, not strike. The liaison barks that a signal can be more dangerous than a weapon, and for once I agree with him, because the longer I stare at those synchronized rings, the more I feel it. This is not a beacon to bring something here. This is a trigger. The flood of data from the Deep Space Network adds another blow, an anomalous gravitational whisper detected near Earth's L1 point, so faint it should have been dismissed as noise. But the timing is unmistakable. It appeared within seconds of Atlas's brightening. My breath catches as a dreadful thought uncoils inside me. Atlas wasn't sending for something, it was awakening something, something already here, something dormant. The DSN operator on the line says the anomaly is small, barely measurable but persistent, like a mass fluctuation with no mass, a pocket of gravitational tension, localizing and strengthening as Atlas continues its internal calibration. A theoretical physicist from Caltech, patched in mid-crisis, breathes the words no one wanted to hear. We're detecting space-time deformation. The Pentagon liaison demands options: strike, disable, intercept, anything we should counter immediately, but the scientists drown him out with competing theories. Atlas is stabilizing a wormhole. Atlas is unfolding higher dimensional geometry. Atlas is anchoring a relay node. Atlas is preparing to transmit something through space-time, not across it. And then the DSN operator adds a final detail that freezes every voice. The deformation is increasing logarithmically. If the trend continues, it reaches critical phase in 17 minutes. 17 minutes. I feel my body go cold, like someone drained the blood out of me.
Langford leans close enough for me to hear the tremor in his breath, whispering, "This isn't a weapon and it isn't a message. It's an arrival protocol." We run simulations in a panic, hands shaking over keyboards, trying to predict what a space-time deformation at L1 could mean. A doorway opening, a structure emerging, a probe materializing, or something even worse, something not built, not sent, but enabled, activated by Atlas's presence. A mathematician from MIT blurts that the deformation metrics match theoretical frameworks for folded geometry storage, meaning the object or entity waiting at L1 might not be a ship, but a compressed system, something stored in a dimension we can't perceive until it's unfolded into ours. I want to vomit. The Pentagon liaison screams that we must strike Atlas now, before the sequence completes, launch everything we have, kinetic, directed energy, classified systems, whatever it takes to break the resonance, even if it risks shattering the comet entirely. But Langford slams his fist onto the console, shouting back with a rawness I've never heard from him. If this structure is keyed to Atlas, destroying it could release whatever is inside uncontrolled. It's the first time the liaison falters because he understands if Atlas is a container sealing something, killing it might unbind the contents. And then, because terror apparently comes in layers, another alert pings from the magnetosphere map. Earth's field is shifting again, but this time not because of Atlas directly. The shift is reactive, responsive. The planet is resonating to the L1 anomaly. Like a tuning fork answering another tuning fork, I whisper, "We're not watching an invasion, we're watching a system connect," and my words hang in the stale room air like smoke. Hubble zooms further into Atlas's cavity, and the structure inside is now accelerating its pulses, the nested rings vibrating faster and faster, the ice around them cracking, shifting, realigning like plates of a glacier sliding against hidden machinery, and the light deepens from blue to a cold, metallic white that triggers a primitive fear in my chest, the kind of fear that evolution encodes when you've lived too long near predators you were never meant to see. The DSN operator calls out the new deformation reading, twice the previous value, then 3 times, then 4, and now we're down to 12 minutes. Someone suggests jamming the L1 region with a massive drones to disrupt the deformation, but even as they say it, the models show the drones would be crushed or scattered the moment they entered the interference zone. Another analyst proposes using the moon as a gravitational shield to block the resonance pathway, but the timing is impossible. The moon is 10 degrees out of alignment and won't shift for hours. We are out of time. And then, in the swirl of panic, a strange calm settles over me. Not acceptance, not surrender, but clarity. The realization that Atlas's entire sequence has been predictable in hindsight. Each step, a logical progression in a process we misinterpreted from the start. It didn't break physics. It used physics. It didn't disrupt the magnetosphere. It modified it. It didn't destabilize Earth-Moon gravity, it mapped it. Atlas was never the event, Atlas was the key, and something out there is the lock, or the door, or the thing waiting to walk through. The DSN feed updates again, 9 minutes, and a live spatial rendering displays the L1 region warping like heat above asphalt, except this isn't atmosphere or optics, but space-time itself bending around a point that shouldn't exist. If this thing unfolds fully, we don't know if we can fold it back. Langford's voice cracks. We don't even know if our physics survives the process. The liaison snaps that if we don't act now, we lose any chance of controlling the situation. And I understand his fear. I truly do. But attacking Atlas now feels like firing a bullet at a locked vault while the thing inside pounds on the door. The resonance spikes again. 7 minutes. Then 6. My thoughts race through every scenario. If the anomaly unfolds into physical mass, what form would it take? Would it be inert, active, autonomous? Would it recognize us? Would it ignore us?
Would it consider Earth its destination, its host, its resource, its home? My heart pounds so violently I feel it in my gums. And then the unimaginable happens. Atlas moves. Not by thrust, not by natural drift, but by alignment. It rotates a full 6 degrees, perfectly matching a primary resonance line between Earth and the L1 anomaly.
And the moment the alignment completes, the deformation surges, a spike so sharp it overloads two sensors simultaneously. Atlas has linked itself. The door is opening. 5 minutes. The Pentagon liaison loses the last of his restraint and orders an immediate hostile response, shouting into the secure channel for NORAD, STRATCOM, and Space Force to prepare launch protocols. But the NASA director cuts him off, invoking emergency override authority, screaming that no weapon is permitted to fire without scientific assessment. And the two of them collide in an argument so furious it's almost feral. But my attention is torn away by a soft, almost delicate ping from my console. A new modulation inside Atlas, faint, fragile, like a whisper after a scream. It's not like the previous pulses. This one is gentle, intentional, almost questioning. My breath stops. It's not signaling the anomaly, I say slowly. It's signaling us. Langford freezes. Why? The answer forms in my mind before the data confirms it. Because the sequence requires acknowledgement. We stare at each other, horrified. It's a handshake protocol, a two-way authentication. If Earth responds through action or interference or even through magnetic resonance, we complete the sequence. But if we don't, what then? 3 minutes. The anomaly at L1 is no longer a point, it's a sphere, small but expanding. Layers unfurling like petals of a flower in slow motion, except each petal is a slice of warped geometry that bends light wrong, bends gravity wrong, bends reality wrong. I feel my throat tighten so hard it hurts. We need to decide, the NASA director says, voice trembling but steady in intent. Do we allow the arrival, or do we try to break the sequence? The Pentagon liaison argues that not acting is itself a form of acknowledgement, that inaction completes the handshake as surely as any signal. But I shake my head violently. No, the modulation is targeted. Atlas wants something specific from us, not panic, not attack, not silence. 1 minute. The sphere at L1 pulses, its edges sharpening as if resolution is increasing, as if the object inside is gaining definition before emergence. And then, with a clarity that terrifies me, I understand. Atlas isn't summoning another being. Atlas is summoning itself, or rather, a larger version of itself, an origin structure, a parent construct. Atlas isn't a probe, it's a seed. And the thing unfolding at L1 is the tree. 30 seconds. Panic erupts in the room, but I barely hear it over the ringing in my ears as the realization settles like ice in my spine. Earth wasn't chosen. Earth was compatible. The magnetic field, the moon's orbit, the Lagrange points, they form a natural triad that Atlas uses as anchoring geometry. Any star system with similar topology would have worked. We weren't special. We were convenient. 5 seconds. 4. 3. The sphere flashes, white, vast, horizonless, and the space-time around Atlas fractures inward, like reality taking a breath. The arrival begins. Then everything goes black.